It's finally the NBA draft lottery. It is lottery day. Today's the day we find out where each of the Thunder's two lottery picks will fall and where the selections will be at in the top 35. The Thunder have four of them. Where will those top two land at? On today's show, we're going to give you everything you need to know about tonight's lottery, including who represents each team and what the odds are for the Thunder. And we're going to have a mock draft as we take one final spin on tankathon.com, a mock draft that includes every other lottery team host on the Lockdown Podcast Network. We're going to react to that as well and tell you what's ahead today on a jam-packed day for Locked On Thunder. All that and more coming up on today's show.
You are Locked On Thunder, your daily Oklahoma City Thunder podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
On today's Locked On Thunder podcast, let's get it going for today's show. We're going to dive all into the NBA Draft Lottery. I'm Rylan Stiles, host of Locked On Thunder, editor-in-chief over at thundersintentions.com, a Thunder media member as well. We're going to dive all into the lottery today. It's going to be a very fun show. We're going to talk about the odds, the team representatives. We're going to have a final mock draft before the lottery, before we actually know where these selections will be at. The Thunder have two lottery picks today. It's a jam-packed day for us over here. You can follow me on Twitter at Rylan_Styles. You can follow the show on Twitter at LOThunderPod. You can email the show, LOThunderPod@gmail.com. And so much to get into today. Let's dive right in. So here's what's on tap today. The NBA Draft Lottery starts at 7 o'clock on ESPN tonight on May 17th on Tuesday. We're going to have a live stream of the lottery on the Locked On NBA YouTube page. Starting at about 6:50, you can start piling in. We'll come on the air and be live for the entire lottery process. We'll react to it for 30 minutes after the lottery with our friends from Locked On NBA Big Board, Raphael Barlow, Richard Stamen, who joins us every single week, and everybody else from the lottery crew, reacting to how this kind of affects their team and maybe even a quick mock draft, obviously, after we get the actual placements of these teams and all the fallout from the lottery. That's what we're going to do tomorrow on Locked On NBA. Live stream, including myself, over there. So join us if you're just sitting at home. Watch it with us in the live chat. We'll all be popping in there, answering questions, doing all that fun stuff. So that's the first thing. Also, after that show's over, we're going to jump right into a Locked On Thunder podcast, breaking it all down from the Thunder perspective and giving you all you need to know about the lottery night that was. And I'm going to try to host a Twitter Spaces sometime this afternoon to kind of bring us all together as we wait for the fate to be decided for this Thunder selection. So a lot to get to today on Locked On Thunder with Locked On Thunder. It's going to be very fun. Subscribe for free across all platforms so you never miss an episode, including Locked On NBA YouTube channel and the Locked On Thunder YouTube channel as well. This is going to be very fun. On today's show, we're going to talk about our team representatives for every single team at the NBA Draft Lottery. We're going to dive into the odds for the Thunder picks, where they might fall. We're going to have a mock draft, our first of the year. We're going to have this one pre-lottery. We'll have another one post-lottery, and we'll have many more leading up to the NBA Draft. This mock draft includes every single host of our fellow lottery Locked On teams. So it's going to be very fun to dive into. And at the end of the show, we're just going to relax and take a few spins maybe on Tinkathon.com and get prepared for tonight's event. This is going to be so fun. So if you're unfamiliar or don't remember how it works, of course, the Thunder and every other team will send somebody to represent them to Chicago. Mark Tatum, the deputy commissioner, will unveil envelopes one by one from reverse order, going from 14 to the top for the lottery to see how it plays out and to see who picks where. And it'll be a fun time. So let's start with the new information. The new information is who will represent each team at the NBA Draft Lottery. We're going to go in alphabetical order. So for the Charlotte Hornets, it'll be PJ Washington, one of their players. For the Cleveland Cavaliers, it'll be Anderson Varejao, of course, a former Cavs player and current team ambassador. For the Pistons, it'll be a Pistons legend, Richard Hamilton. For the Rockets, it'll be Raphael Stone, their general manager. For the Pacers, it'll be Kelly Kakofis, I believe is how you say it, their assistant general manager. For the Pelicans, it'll be Swishcast, their vice president in basketball operations. For the Knicks, it'll be William Wesley, their executive vice president and senior basketball advisor. For the Thunder, we finally know who represents the Thunder in the draft lottery. It will be Thunder legend Nick Collison, Mr. Thunder, who has his jersey hanging in the rafters of the Paycom Center. He is there representing the Thunder. For the Magic, it'll be Jeff Weltman. For the Blazers and Kings, they both go the current player route. Dame for the Blazers and Sabonis for the Kings. For the Spurs, Dave Robertson, the Spurs legend and strategic partner, whatever that means for his career or his future right now with the team, strategic partner. And for the Wizards, they just roll out their head coach, Wes Unseld Jr. However, of course, he is the son of the best Wizards player of all time, Wes Unseld, playing for the Bullets back then, and of course, Hall of Famer. So that is a cool tie in there for Washington. We know who represents them. Last year for the Thunder, the first year of this kind of rebuild, the first year back in the lottery, they sent Nazir Muhammad to represent them. Didn't pan out. So you got to switch up the mojo a little bit. Get Nick Collison in there. He wore number 4. Is that a sign that they won't fall past 4? That'd be a very big win for the Thunder as well, to not fall past 4. So that is going to be very fun to watch Nick Collison's reaction, no matter the outcome, but especially if they get a very good, promising pick. That'll be very fun to see. Now, let's talk about the draft lottery odds real quick. As a refresher, the Thunder own the Clippers pick completely unprotected. Remember, they headed into the lottery owning the Rockets pick, but it was top 4 protected. If it got into the top 4, the Rockets kept their pick. Stayed in the top 4, the Rockets kept their pick. If it fell out of the top 4, the Thunder got their pick. So the Rockets, of course, were so bad last year, it could only go to 5, and you only had really one shot at it. And, of course, the Rockets kept their pick and drafted Jalen Green. In this case, no matter where that Clippers pick goes, in this order, in the draft lottery, it will go to the Thunder. And it's only in the lottery because, thankfully, the Pelicans knocked out the Clippers in the play-in tournament. So a huge thank you to the Clippers for getting that done. I mean, just the Pelicans were getting that done in the play-in tournament for the even chance at another lottery pick and the high lottery pick at that for the Thunder via the Clippers. So let's talk about the order of operations here. Let's start with the Thunder pick. The Thunder, of course, finished with the 4th worst record in the league. Remember, with the flattened lottery odds, the bottom 3 teams have the same odds at the top overall pick, 14% chance. The Thunder finished at 4, so they have a 12.5% chance at the first overall pick. However, if you combine the Clippers' 1.5% chance of leaping up with the Thunder's 12.5, they do have 14% chance total to get a top overall pick. But the Thunder, staying on the Thunder pick specifically, they have a 12.5% chance at pick number 1, a 12.2% chance at pick number 2, an 11.9% chance at pick number 3, an 11.5% chance at pick number 4. They have a 7.2% chance at pick number 5, a 25.7% chance, the most likely scenario, at pick 7. The second most likely scenario is a pick 7 at 16.7. That 25.7 is pick 6. At pick 8, this is the lowest that they can fall. It'll go 2.2. So that is very important to continue to monitor as we move forward here. The lowest the Thunder can get is pick 8 at 2.2. Pick 7 is 16.7. And pick 6 is 25.7. And hopefully they leap all the way up to number 1, which is only a 25% chance of happening. I should say 12.5% chance of happening. For the Clippers, their most likely scenario is 86.1 at pick 12. They have a 6.7% chance, their second most likely scenario, at pick 13. They have a 0.1% chance to fall down to 14, which likely will not happen. They have a 1.5% chance at pick 1, a 1.7% chance at pick 2, a 1.9% chance at pick 3, and a 2.1% chance at pick 4. They cannot get 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, nor 11. So again, as this process unfolds, you're going to see Mark Tatum unveil envelopes. If you do not see the Thunder logo at pick 14, if you do not see the Thunder logo at pick 13, if you do not see the Thunder logo at pick 12, if it goes through those first 3 slots and there is still no Thunder logo in sight, then that means the Thunder for sure have at least one top 4 pick. And that is where you start to party if that happens. Now, in all likelihood, this pick will just be at 14 and we move on about our day. But there is that chance that it could leap up. So it's something to monitor. And of course, the big kicker here is, of course, where the Thunder's pick's actually going to be, because they actually have the best odds of the 2 of actually leaping up and getting something of note. So that's the lottery odds. That's who's going to represent the teams. And today, you're going to find out a lot about yourself, I think. Today, you're going to find out what kind of person you are. It's a journey of self-discovery. If you wake up today and you turn on the Locked On Thunder podcast for your first listen, we greatly appreciate that. Subscribe for free across all platforms. and you're drinking your coffee, you're drinking your Diet Coke, you're drinking your water, whatever you drink to get your day started, and if that drink tastes better than it's ever tasted before, you're a glass half full person because you're ready to rock and roll. You're ready to cash in on a top pick. If that drink tastes a bit bitter, a bit worrisome, and you're pretty anxious, you might be a glass half empty kind of person where, I'm not sure how this lottery is going to pan out. So allow today to be a journey of self-discovery. Allow today to be something that you hold on to because, folks, when you actually break it down, we're hours away from letting ping pong balls decide how our first few summer months are going to start. Are we going to be very excited, riding high, waiting to that June draft? Or are we going to spend now to the end of June pacing the floors and wondering how Sam Presti can pull another rabbit out of his hat? All over ping pong balls. It's a crazy, wild sport, but we all love it. So coming up, we're going to have our mock draft with every other Locked On NBA host representing their teams and drafting for their selection for their teams off of one Tankathon spin. But before we get to that, I want to say right now, my good friends over at PrizePicks. PrizePicks is your daily fantasy sports made easy. I love it, and we know you will too. PrizePicks, you pick 2 to 5 players and over under on their projected numbers. You can win up to 10 times on any entry. It's just you versus the projected numbers. It's entries that can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's that easy. PrizePicks is safe, offers fast withdrawals. Use the award-winning app on both the App Store and Google Play Store. PrizePicks offers a variety of options. It also offers you any prop you can think of, from points scored to rebounds and even steals. PrizePicks also offers mixed sport entries. You can take the over on Luka Doncic points and the under on Aaron Nola strikeouts, and you can do that all in the same entry. And PrizePicks does not just offer NBA. They offer college basketball, college football, NFL, MLB, soccer, MMA, and more. For a very limited time, PrizePicks is offering an exclusive offer that's a no-brainer offer for all of our users. Users can get $50 for free if a player in your first PrizePick entry scores a single point. But you must use the code NBA. That's right. This is an exclusive offer available to Locked On fans. Sign up today and use code NBA for $50 for free if a player in your first PrizePick entry scores a single point. Also, I want to say about good friends over at Built Bar. Built Bar is a fantastic protein bar that tastes just like a candy bar. Go to BuiltBar.com, use the promo code LOCK15, get 15% off of your next order. I just received my new shipment of the new flavor, birthday cake puffs, and they are exactly what you're going to want. It is like dipping your hand in a tub of cake icing, but for only limited calories, 150 calories, and getting 16 grams of protein and only 9 grams of sugar. Imagine dipping your hand in that plastic tub of icing and only coming out with 9 grams of sugar. It's impossible. And only 150 calories, 16 grams of protein. It's awesome. Use it pre-workout or post-workout or even as a meal replacement or a snack. It's where you want to be. Built Bars can help you out with your wellness journey. Make sure you check them out today. And whenever you do, go to Built.com, put in the promo code LOCK15, get 15% off your next order. Built.com, promo code LOCK15, 15% off of your next order.
Nick Engstead here from the Locked On NBA podcast to bring you our lottery mock draft. I went to Tankathon, did a simulation, and this is how it turned out. We had a little bit of work at the top. The Orlando Magic slide up to the number 1 pick. Oklahoma City slides up 2 spots to get number 2. Houston falls to number 3. Detroit falls to number 4. And then it goes chalk from there with the Pacers, Blazers, Kings, Pelicans, Spurs, Wizards, Knicks, Thunder again, Charlotte Hornets, and then the Cleveland Cavaliers round out the lottery. We are going to go one by one to each of our Locked On hosts to get their pick, who they would pick if their team actually falls in this spot.
With the first pick of the Locked On NBA mock draft, the Orlando Magic select Paolo Banchero. I'm Philip Rosenreich, the host of the Locked On Magic podcast, and the reason the Magic take Paolo Banchero is quite simple. They need a guy who can create his own shot. They need a guy who can be a primary scorer. They've got a lot of great secondary players. They got a lot of really good young talent. but they need a guy that they can truly orbit around. And what we saw during the NCAA tournament, what we saw all year at Duke, was Paolo Banchero is that star kind of player, a guy who can work from the outside and the inside, a guy who has size and defensive potential and capabilities, but really this is about adding his scoring and his scoring ability. This is a guy who's got tremendous footwork and just is a tremendous scorer, and that's just frankly what the Magic need, especially for a team that was one of the worst offensive teams in the league. So the Orlando Magic will take Paolo Banchero with the first pick in the Locked On NBA mock draft.
With the second pick in the 2022 Locked On NBA mock draft, the Oklahoma City Thunder select Jabari Smith, forward out of Auburn. The Oklahoma City Thunder finally get lottery luck, and they jump up from 4 to 2, and my best player on my big board, Jabari Smith Jr., was available after Paolo Banchero went number 1. This pick was really between him and Chet Holmgren, and maybe Sam Presti would lean towards Chet Holmgren just based on the tantalizing nature of his 7-foot frame with guard-like skills. But Jabari Smith Jr. can fit seamlessly alongside Josh Giddey and SGA with his 3-and-D potential. Richard Stamen, that Mavs draft on Twitter, and our Locked On expert, has compared him to Klay Thompson. And so whenever you're trying to fit two guards together that are ball dominant in SGA and Josh Giddey, you need to find a player who can fit into that equation without mucking it up and adding another ball dominant player, but still having high upside. And that's exactly what Jabari Smith Jr. does. He can play elite defense, he can score very well in the offensive end, and he can allow for SGA to take over in isolation and Josh Giddey to set him up with his elite playmaking. So that's where we're going here on the Locked On Mock Draft. I'm Rylan Stiles, host of the Locked On Thunder podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day.
With the third overall pick in the Locked On NBA mock draft, the Houston Rockets select Chet Holmgren out of Gonzaga. What's up? Jackson Gatlin here from over at Locked On Rockets. And look, the Rockets can't go wrong with any of the top 3 big man prospects in this year's NBA draft. Being third on the board isn't as good as being number 1 on the board, but being able to come away with Chet Holmgren is still a huge get for this Houston Rockets team. He has size, he has shooting, and he's got the potential to be the number 1 player coming out of this year's draft, a true unicorn in every sense of the word, a guy that you can slot in at the 5 if you're Houston. Maybe you run him at the 4 alongside Alperen Sengun or Christian Wood, depending on what their lineup looks like next season. A lot of flexibility to be had with Chet Holmgren and a very, very bright future when you pair him with Jalen Green.
With the 4th pick in the 2022 Locked On NBA mock draft, the Detroit Pistons select Shadon Sharpe, 6'5" guard out of Kentucky. In this lottery mock draft, the Detroit Pistons fell from number 3 to number 4, which isn't that bad, but that takes off Banchero, Chet Holmgren, and Jabari Smith. That leaves a bunch of guards and a bunch of wings available at number 4, and I feel like Sharpe is, as of right now, one of the more interesting prospects in the entire draft. Yes, he's technically coming out of Kentucky, but he did not play a single game of college basketball, so you don't really have a ton of tape to really go off. Despite this, the 19-year-old has rose up a bunch of people's draft boards drawing comparisons to Paul George, Bradley Beal, and Jalen Green. And any type of player like that would fit, I feel like, pretty well next to Cade Cunningham. If the Pistons do miss out on one of the big men, finding Cade Cunningham's long-term backcourt mate, you get a guy like that, I feel like a lot of Pistons fans would be happy. Could have went with Jaden Ivey right here, but I find Shadon Sharpe to be a bit more interesting as of right now. So the Detroit Pistons select Shadon Sharpe with the number 4 overall pick in this year's Locked On NBA mock draft.
With the 5th pick in the Locked On NBA mock draft, the Indiana Pacers select Jaden Ivey from Purdue. I'm Tony East with the Locked On Pacers podcast. And Ivey's a really good fit for what the Pacers have and need. They basically just need talent at this point after winning just 25 games, having their 3rd worst season in franchise history, but a speedy guard who can dominate the game when Tyrese Halliburton is floating more off the ball or when he's out of the game is a fantastic fit for this Pacers team. And Ivey, somewhat local, going to Purdue, just an hour from Indianapolis, would be an excellent fit for this franchise. His speed, burst, his power, his athleticism just makes him such a dynamic player, and why he's just such a highly regarded prospect. Got up to 17 points per game this season for Purdue. The passing isn't quite all the way there, but definitely showed flashes of playmaking. Shot the ball pretty well to start the season. Looks like he can be a scorer from basically all over the floor and a pretty good creator everywhere. His defense is solid thanks to his athleticism and speed as well. He just seems like an athletic freak who can do a lot with the ball. And that's a good fit for any team, but especially a Pacers team looking to add talent and dynamic play to their franchise. So the Pacers take Ivey at 5, and they're very happy to do it.
With the sixth pick in the Locked On NBA mock draft, the Portland Trailblazers select Keegan Murray. I'm Mike Richmond, host of Locked On Blazers, your past first point guard. And if the Blazers do remain in sixth, they keep those lottery odds right where they are. With the sixth best lottery odds, they end up picking sixth in the draft. Keegan Murray seems like a pretty darn good outcome. One of the most productive players in college basketball last season. Fits a position of need on a team desperate for forwards. Keegan Murray could help right away for the Blazers and has some upside to be part of the future. I think they'd be pretty excited if Keegan Murray's on the board when it comes down to it in June.
This is Matt George, host of the Locked On Kings podcast, and with the seventh pick in this Locked On NBA lottery mock draft, Sacramento Kings take AJ Griffin out of Duke. Now, I'll be honest with you, if I had the ability to trade this draft pick, I absolutely would. Unfortunately, was not able to do so here. But if the Kings do end up at number 7, where they're projected to end up, don't be surprised at all if they heavily shop and ultimately move on from this pick. The Kings are looking for immediate impact players. And while I like the upside of a guy like AJ Griffin, he theoretically fits a need for the Sacramento Kings with their lack of wing depth. I like his potential as a defender, his potential as a shooter, his size, his athleticism. Love all those things. But can you expect AJ Griffin or too many rookies from this draft class, period, to be immediate impact type players that are going to get the Kings from the cellar in the West to in the playoffs? That's the expectation for this team as early as next year. They're going to need a big turnaround. That means big impact from starter and rotation players. AJ Griffin would not be a bad player to have on this Kings squad. Don't know if he does enough, but that's who I'll end up taking, and I'll take him with comfort and happiness here on the mock draft.
With the 8th pick in the Locked On NBA mock draft, the New Orleans Pelicans select Benedict Mathurin, wing from Arizona. I'm Jake Madison with the Locked On Pelicans podcast and Locked On NBA. With Zion Williamson healthy next season, the starting lineup and first guys off the bench are set for the Pels, which means they can go in any direction with the 8th pick. And at this spot in the draft, Mathurin is the right mix of best player available with high upside. As a sophomore at Arizona, he showed off a multi-dimensional offensive game that is tailor-made for the NBA. He's comfortable inside the arc, but more importantly for this Pelicans team that was one of the worst three-point shooting teams in the league, he's a guy that excels at both pull-up and catch-and-shoot threes. Defensively, he has moments of lockdown defense, showing what he can do at the NBA level and has the tools to guard multiple positions, but he's definitely over-aggressive at times, and he relies a little bit too much on his long mid-range game when he gets himself into trouble, so there's room for development. With CJ McCollum getting older, and this Pelicans team going to be very expensive soon, getting a guy that can be a lead scoring option after a couple of years development at 8 on a cheap rookie deal, that's exactly the type of long-term thinking the New Orleans Pelicans need to continue building the sustainable success that they are hoping for. So for more on Zion Williamson and the rest of this Pelicans team, that Jose Alvarado there right behind you, be sure to check out the Locked On Pelicans podcast.
With the number 9 pick in the Locked On NBA 2022 mock draft, the San Antonio Spurs select Jalen Duren out of Memphis. I am Jeff Garcia with Locked On Spurs, and here's why the Spurs, or at least this case, Locked On Spurs, decided to go with the big man, Jalen Duren. He's exactly what the Spurs need to address their biggest need in the offseason, and that is size. After Jakob Poeltl, the depth chart for the Spurs is relatively weak. You have Zach Collins, who is coming off an injury that set him away from the NBA for over a year and a half. Still needs time to get back to form. And, of course, there's still unproven rookie Jock Landale. 6'11", 250 pounds, He's exactly what the Spurs need. He averaged 12 points per game last season with Memphis. Shot 60% from the field in 25 minutes. He's physically gifted, good leaping ability, mobile. He is exactly what the Spurs need to counter the modern centers in today's NBA. A 7'5" wingspan can cover a lot of ground on both ends of the court. Agile, lateral quickness. He's exactly what the Spurs team needs. This is Jeff Garcia with Locked On Spurs. Subscribe to Locked On Spurs wherever you get your favorite podcast.
What's going on? My name is Ed Oliver from the Locked On Wizards podcast. And with the 10th pick of the Locked On NBA mock draft, the Washington Wizards select Malachi Branham out of Ohio State. Great player, 6'5", 180 pounds. Freshman, was Big Ten Rookie of the Year, 2022 All Big Ten, and made the Big Ten All Freshman team. Went to St. Vincent St. Mary High School. Is from Columbus, Ohio. We all know who else went to that high school too, so maybe there's some pedigree there too. But the Wizards need talent. This guy averaged 13 points a game, 49% from the field, 41% from the three-point line, fit in 83% from the free throw line, was almost a 50-40-90 guy. We could use some talent. He's athletic. He can get to the rim. He's a slasher, great finisher around the rim, can finish above the rim and could create a shot for himself. The Wizards need talent, especially at the guard position. So Malachi Branham is a combo guard that can come in and immediately help the Washington Wizards. Thank you for listening. Peace.
With the 11th pick of the Locked On NBA mock draft, the New York Knicks select Dyson Daniels, guard out of the G League Ignite. I am Alex Wolf. I'm one of the hosts of Locked On Knicks, and we were ecstatic to get this pick and be able to take Dyson Daniels here. The Knicks really just kind of need a player like Daniels. You know, we think that he'll fit in great in between Emmanuel Quickley and RJ Barrett. He's long. He plays great defense. He can, attack the basket some. The shot is a little bit of a work in progress, but he has ideal NBA size at 6'8" and 6'11" wingspan with very legit guard skills. So we're super happy to get him here. We think he's going to fit in great with the sort of point guard by committee that the Knicks will hopefully run with him, Quickley, and RJ Barrett as far as initiating the offense next year, maybe even Julius Randle if he's still around. So really ecstatic to have him. Almost took Johnny Davis, but Dyson Daniels is our guy. And we've been talking about him a lot on Locked On Knicks, so definitely be sure to check us out there. Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast.
With the 12th pick in the 2022 Locked On NBA mock draft, the Oklahoma City Thunder select Jeremy Sohan, forward out of Baylor University. I'm Rylan Stiles, host of the Locked On Thunder podcast, and Jeremy Sohan is likely the best defender in this NBA draft class. Now, at this pick, the Thunder would have liked to have Jalen Duren fall down to them, and maybe they would even trade up to get Jalen Duren. But given the circumstances, as Dyson Daniel goes off the board one pick before the Thunder, Jeremy Sohan is a really nice option to create roster versatility for the Thunder, who need to improve defensively and need to improve on the three-point line, which their number 2 overall pick, Jabari Smith Jr., helps with the number 2 helps with the three-point line and defense. Jeremy Sohan could be the best defender in this class, and you're putting together a team at that point that's very young, very versatile, and can complement SGA and Josh Giddey in the team's quest to get out of this rebuilding phase and back into title contention. While it will take some time, it could happen with Jeremy Sohan at the helm with Jabari Smith Jr. complementing your 2 stars.
With the 13th pick in the Locked On NBA mock draft, the Charlotte Hornets select Johnny Davis out of Wisconsin. I'm Walker Mail from the Locked On Hornets podcast alongside Doug Branson. And we had an interesting decision to make with the Hornets having the 13th pick and the 15th pick. I wanted to go with the best center. It's well documented that is a huge need for the Charlotte Hornets, but Doug texted me with an interesting scenario once the 13th pick was on the board.
Well, I saw Johnny Davis sitting there available because a few teams above us may have reached a little bit. I'm not judging, but they got the player they wanted, but they may have reached. And Johnny Davis, a player that I think really would complement in the long term, complement LaMelo Ball well because he can defend. He's long, he's athletic, and I think Johnny Davis would be a perfect 2 guard next to LaMelo Ball long term. Because here's the thing: the Hornets, yes, they needed center, they need interior defense, but they need defense everywhere. They need perimeter defense too, Walker.
Yeah, Johnny Davis averaged 19.7 points per game, had an excellent year in the Big Ten this past season, a 2-year player with the Badgers. I think the shooting can improve. Even if the three-point shooting wasn't great, his free throw shooting was sitting at about 80%. I don't think he's going to fail in the NBA. I think he's a guy that can help out in a bunch of different areas. And with that 15th overall selection, I think the Charlotte Hornets can select that center that they desperately need, along with maybe picking one up in free agency. If you want to hear more about the Charlotte Hornets leading up to the NBA draft, you can check out Locked On Hornets wherever you get your podcasts. Follow me on Twitter at Walker Mail, Doug on Twitter at Doug Branson LOH, and the show handle on Twitter at Locked On Hornets.
With the 14th pick in this mock draft, the Cleveland Cavaliers select Ochai Agbaji, the wing from Kansas. I'm Chris Manning, one of the hosts of the Locked On Cavs podcast. And Agbaji, this past year's Final Four most outstanding player, fits a real need for the Cleveland Cavaliers. This team needs wings, and they particularly need wings who can shoot. They need wings who can provide support for Darius Garland, for Evan Mobley, for Jared Allen. There's perhaps no player who fits that 3-and-D mold more in this range of the draft than Agbaji. Yes, he's a little bit older. Yes, maybe there's some upside concerns, but for a Cavs team that has its high-end talent, or at least the players I think they believe are their high-end talent, they have a need for a guy like this to maybe cover for some of Isaac Okoro's deficiencies, for Lamar Stevens' deficiencies, and he just fills a need on this roster. You don't always maybe want to draft for need. There are other guys in this class I think they could strongly look at and could fill other needs this team has. But at 14, Abaji feels like a guy that could come in and play and fills a real need. It's hard to not like this pick for the Cavs if it ends up falling this way.
I want to tell you right now, but our good friends over at BetOnline, folks. BetOnline is your number one source for all your betting needs, sports information, and latest odds, news, and developments, including this year's basketball playoffs, Major League Baseball fights, and even next season's NFL futures. BetOnline is your continued source for all of your sports wagering information from live betting, playoffs, esports, and more. Go right now to their website or even use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline is where the game starts, and folks, it's so easy. You type in betonline.net. You go over to their sports book. We've already loaded in now, and we can go down to basketball, NBA basketball, and basketball games, and we get to the lines for the playoffs tonight. Celtics 1.5-point underdogs on the road in Miami. And tomorrow, the Mavs and Warriors, Mavs 5-point underdogs on the road in Golden State. Let's go with the Mavs money line here to upset the Warriors in game one on the road and see how successful that bet can be for us. That's how fast you can go place a bet at BetOnline. We are back on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. I'm your host, Rylan Stiles. You can follow me on Twitter at Rylan_Stiles. You can follow the show on Twitter at LOThunderPod. Email the show, LOThunderPod@gmail.com. Thank you for making Locked On Thunder your first listen. Subscribe for free across all platforms so you never miss an episode. For your second listen, go check out the Locked On NBA Big Board podcast, getting you set for the NBA draft with breakdowns, analysis, big boards, player rankings, mock drafts, and everything that you need to know heading up to the NBA draft. Also, check out the Locked On NBA podcast for the national perspective on the NBA. Do not forget, we're going to have our live stream during the lottery today on the Locked On NBA YouTube channel. Check that out. Right after that, we'll record Locked On Thunder, the podcast for the next day, breaking it all down for you. And then also, I'm going to try to host the Twitter Spaces around lunchtime, so follow me on Twitter for that at Rylan_Stiles. Wow, what a mock draft. That was a fun way to kick things off. The Thunder get picked 2 and 12, which if that happened today, that would be awesome. The Magic pick Paolo Banchero at pick 1. I like the pick, and that left my number 1 player on the board, Jabari Smith Jr. However, although he's my number 1 player, you have to wonder if Sam Presti's number 1 player is Chet Holmgren. So, that is kind of a coin toss of who Sam Presti would select, either Jabari Smith or Chet Holmgren. And I think that this draft ended up about as well as it could go. I mean, you get any pick in the top 3, you have to be happy. I love the Pistons going for Shaedon Sharpe at 4. I absolutely love what Koo did there for his Detroit Pistons. Jaden Ivey with the Pacers is very fun. Keegan Murray in Portland is interesting. We did not do any trades or even think about trading in this mock. I do wonder what that range is for Portland. Of course, it seems like there's a ton of smoke and fire around Portland wanting Jeremy Grant and trading their first round pick for Jeremy Grant. But would they trade 6 and all of a sudden the Pacers have pick 4 and 6 and all they gave up was Jeremy Grant? And then, can you kind of get Shaedon Sharpe and then see where you got at pick 6? Would they go Murray? Would they go Griffin, who went next to the Kings? Benedict Mathurin went to New Orleans. I love that pick for the New Orleans. I think that Benedict Mathurin could be an impact player for them right away and join that playoff group right now. The Spurs got Jalen Duren, who I know is a lot of your fan favorites out there for the Thunder to swoop up. That was an unexpected pick for me for the Spurs to get up there at 9 and get him. Again, no trading, so I did not attempt to move up to get him, but that is something that realistically the Thunder could do if they thought that Duren was going to go that high at 9, 10, 11, which is kind of his range before that 12 mark in this scenario. The biggest surprise to me of this entire mock draft was Washington's pick. I did not think that they would go Brenham at pick 10, although there are some rumors that after this combine session, he might be flying up draft boards because the combine coincides with private workouts and coincides with interviews with teams and getting to kind of make your mark on organizations. I love the Knicks going Dyson Daniels, but that set up an interesting scenario for the Thunder here at pick 12, where we went with Jeremy Sohan, who I think is the best defender in this class. So I just kind of drafted him there as a value play. The Hornets got Johnny Davis, who they were very excited about getting Johnny Davis in the group chat. They thought that was kind of one of their best scenarios panning out for them for the Hornets. And then the Cavs make the most Cavs pick ever. And I say that in the sense of almost every mock draft I read has Akai Agbaji going to the Cavs at 14. It just seems like they're a match made in heaven. Agbaji, of course, is a ready-made player who can score the basketball off ball and on ball, and really fits into a team in the play that's trying to kind of get to that next gear, despite his age and what many will view his age as a limit on his upside. But for the Cavs, it makes a lot of sense to go with that. I like that pick as well. I don't see a way Akai Agbaji fails in the NBA. Now, he might not reach his tippity top ceiling. He might not reach starter/superstar potential. Obviously, that would be a lofty expectation of him, but I also don't see how he flames out. So that's a very good pick for a team at 14 that can afford to be more conservative with the core they've put together in Cleveland. Ultimately, I love this mock draft. I think that everybody made some good selections, and that's why you should listen to Locked On Podcast Network, because we're all experts and local experts on our team that are really plugged in. So it's easy to see, we're not picking Jalen Duren at 4, right? We're picking, realistic, scenarios here. Again, my biggest waffle after the board unfolded was not at pick 12. I actually liked going Sohan there. And that's kind of who I immediately thought of. Our good friend, Mavs Draft, Richard Stamen, who joins us every single week, he tried to convince me to go Tyrese, but heard some interesting things about his workouts. That's all I'll say about that. My biggest waffling was Jabari Smith versus Chet Holmgren. So let me know in the comment section down below. Would you go Jabari Smith or would you go Chet Holmgren in this scenario for the Thunder after Paolo Banchero's off the board at pick 1 if this were to play out? So that's how our one spin went on our mock draft, our first mock draft of the year. Now remember, we're going to be doing this almost weekly, these mock drafts. So it'll be a lot of fun to keep up with. Plus, at the tail end of the draft cycle, we're going to have our ultimate mock draft show, which will include former NBA players, former NBA executives, and of course, our local experts making the selections for the teams after we see where these selections are going to be made at. So let's unwind today. A show that's going to be very stressful, a day that will be very stressful leading up to our live lottery show. Let's unwind with some spins here, and hopefully we get good luck. Or do we want bad luck? Before we spin, do we want good luck and good vibes? Or do we want to get the bad luck out of the way in hopes that we get good luck tonight? Let's see. Our first spin. Well, Portland leaps up to 5. Detroit goes up to 2. The Pelicans via the Lakers pick goes to 3. And then it's Houston, Orlando, Oklahoma City. Oklahoma City has the 6th pick and the 12th pick. I will say I am kind of rooting for the Pelicans leap up with that Lakers pick. I think that would be hilarious. But, of course, I want the Thunder to get higher than 6. Although, folks, based on the mathematical odds, 6 and 12 is the most likely outcome for the Thunder. So prepare yourself for 6 and 12, and then whatever else happens, whatever else goes on in a good way, will just be the icing on the cake. Shout out to Tyler Carroll, who ran a billion, that's an exaggeration, but a billion simulations to figure out 15K to be exact, simulations to figure out what would be the most likely scenario, and it is 6 and 12. So let's continue on now with another spin. The Thunder stay at 4. The Wizards leap up to 1. Sacramento goes up to 2. And Orlando goes to 3. The Thunder stay at 4 and 12. The next spin has the Thunder at pick 1. Pick 1, pick 12 for the Thunder. Behind them is Detroit, Indiana, and San Antonio. So Houston plummets to 5. Orlando goes to 6. Portland goes down to 7. Sacramento goes down to 8. And the Lakers go down to 9. And then it's 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 unchanged between Washington and New York. The Thunder via the Clippers, Hornets, and Cavs. Last spin of the day. Back-to-back number ones for the Thunder. Back-to-back 1 and 12 for the Thunder. If that's not a sign, I don't know what is. Please, Nick Collison, bring us good luck. Please subscribe to Locked On Thunder on YouTube and Locked On NBA on YouTube for our live lottery show on the Locked On NBA feed. And also, all of our episodes are free and available wherever you get your podcasts from, on Apple, Spotify, Google Play, YouTube, Stitcher, anywhere you can find podcasts from. It's free and available. Locked On Thunder is. So subscribe anywhere you get your podcast from at all. And follow me on Twitter for live reaction at Rylan_Styles. And also a Twitter Spaces, hopefully around lunchtime today, for your enjoyment to kind of ease some or calm some nerves heading into a stressful night. So until tomorrow, whenever we know where the Thunder picks are going to be good